Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another episode of Have Your Say. I'm your presenter Bashir Blenman, and today we're going to talk about peer pressure. This is something that is very severe, and like I say, from my experience, I haven't seen something as detrimental as peer pressure. Reason being, you can have someone that knows the right thing, they want to do the right thing, but they fall into doing the wrong thing because of their friends and because of peer pressure. So before we get into the conversation, we'd like to introduce our guest, Brother Ilyas, assalamu alaikum. And Brother Abu Bakr, assalamu alaikum. Okay, I think we've all had our fair share of peer pressure. But the thing about peer pressure is how you deal with it. No one can ever say they haven't experienced it because you can't avoid it, to be honest. But the difference is how we deal with it. Do we succumb to it or do we rise above it? So, Brother Ilyas, do you think it's a major issue or something that is, I don't know, how big of an issue do you think peer pressure is?
I think it's a massive issue because especially for the youth who are forced into, well, forced is a strong word, but when they're made to obviously go to school and what have you, they do, what's expected of them. They're going to be, in an environment where they're going to be with, like-minded peers and people of the same age, whether, the opposite gender or not, and they're going to make friends. And of those friends, there will be people who, have an influence on them, whether that's good or bad. And, with that comes peer pressure. And obviously that peer pressure could be for good or bad. And unfortunately, as, is the majority of the case, it's often a bad thing. Yeah.
What do you think, Abu Bakr?
I think peer pressure, especially amongst young people in the society that we live in today, is a very big problem because peer pressure can lead into many other things, i.e. depression. And we live in a time whereby, because of social media and stuff like that, people are expected to be a certain way and people are expected to look a certain way. If you look in history, even if you look at many people of the past, back in the day, you might look at a woman who maybe had big lips and that will be looked at as something strange. But now that is something that most women want now, so they'll be taking surgery to make their lips bigger. Also, when we look at, things like hair extensions, back in the day, you look at a woman who's got extensions in their hair, you'd be like, no one doesn't want a woman with extension. But even people with natural hair now who have got long hair are putting extensions in their hair. Due to the simple fact of peer pressure, people are expected to do certain things and look a certain way. And I feel like it is a very, very big problem amongst the young youth because we see a lot of young people in this day, in this society, under pressure to the next level. And they don't know how to deal with it. So I believe peer pressure is a real big problem.
I think one thing that's very sad about peer pressure is that, like you say, you literally can't keep up with it. You can't keep up with it, and one thing it makes you do, it takes you right outside of yourself. Like we grew up in a time where it went from like really baggy jeans, for another example, baggy jeans, and then it went to straight jeans, and now it's gone to skinny jeans. And then it went to like jeggings or whatever it is, and then it's like it's a constant thing that is constantly changing, and it's taking people outside of themselves. And the biggest issue we have now is that the Muslim's identity has never really changed. We have an identity that is from the time of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is our identity. So when we let peer pressure affect us, it takes us so far away from what we know is the right thing. Then it's like you say, people fall into depression. People want to kill themselves. People can't. They can't mentally handle it because it's something that is so far removed from what is upon us as Muslims. So it's a very sad situation. But in your personal, we'll touch more about, maybe we could talk about you later. But do you know any examples of how peer pressure has affected someone else and it's had a negative effect on them, a very negative effect?
One that comes to mind is, from one perspective, you obviously have your Muslim. The young Muslim man, for example, going through school, then college, trying his best to obviously practice his faith while obviously, fulfilling every other obligation, dunya-wise, his studies, making his parents happy and what have you. And at the same time, trying to balance everything, but at the same time trying to live up to this ideal that, perhaps his friends and actually everybody in his life are trying to impose on him, and he's trying to live up to everybody's expectations and trying to make everyone happy. But you can't make everyone happy. Your parents have an expectation. Your friends have this, this image of you that you need to try and live up to. And it's all getting too much. And then you're like, but I'm a Muslim. I need to fulfill obviously obligations and stay away from certain sins and all the rest of it. And then it gets too much for an individual. They can crack under that kind of pressure. An example would be many that I've seen, which is pretty much the same thing again and again. Obviously, the young Muslim man falling off perhaps, practicing his faith as best as he can, and then falling into obviously, many sins, major sins and things like that, and then becoming rebellious against his parents at the expense of what? Just trying to perhaps make his friends happy or live up to what his friends expect of him in terms of how he sees him, trying to be cool as well, not trying to be the odd one out. So I've seen that many a time, and obviously this can this can have a heavy price.
And like I say, you do a lot of mentoring, a lot of youth work. Like I can imagine the stories that you've come across. Anything specific that sticks out in your mind?
There's a saying I like to say: peer pressure leads to blood pressure, because when you look at the young people of today, wallahi, peer pressure, majority of them don't know how to deal with it. We've had cases where people have attempted suicide. We've had cases where people have taken their own life due to pressure. Peer pressure, wallahi, brother, it's not a joke. It's a serious matter. Especially for these young people, they don't know how to articulate themselves. They don't know how to deal with this type of pressure, whether it's online, even things like online bullying. Someone falls into a mistake, everyone starts talking to them online. Bro, this affects you right into your household. It will affect you right where you're in your bed. It's something that can make you go crazy. Another thing that I've noticed amongst a lot of young people, we don't understand depression. So I've spoken to young people who have fell into depression for the first time, and they never thought, naturally, you don't think you're gonna fall into depression. All of us, I believe, suffer some bit of depression. Maybe depression is the wrong word, but sometimes we feel a bit sad, we feel a bit disappointed in the way our life's going and maybe in the things that we do, or we might have fell into something. But some people, bro, when they get into depression, they go into a trap. I remember I was talking to one young brother and he's like, you know what? The first time I fell into depression, I knew what depression was for real, whereby I couldn't wake up in the morning. I mean, I woke up in the morning, but I couldn't get out of my bed. I could no longer go to college anymore. I completely shut myself out from people, and I just didn't want to be in this world no more. So I think peer pressure is something that I'm happy that you've brought up this topic on this show today, because I think it's a serious topic and it's something that needs to be discussed, especially in the Muslim community, because we have a big problem in the community when it comes to depression and like identity crisis.
Me personally, I had an episode of depression when my best friend died. Yeah, but it was a very short spell. It wasn't a long spell, maybe a month or two. I've always kind of felt some type of sadness over it, but I can't say it's still depression. But when it initially happened, it was depression. Where, like I say, you feel like you can't function, you can't think straight, you can't sleep. Imagining that happening to someone on a long-term scale, it's like, it's something that it can bring tears to your eyes thinking that someone is actually going through that. But this is, like I say, the reality of peer pressure, like you say, this online bullying, this whole thing of trying to keep up appearances, trying to be someone that you're not, you're trying to be someone that you don't even want to be yourself. But this is what's happening to a lot of these people because they're not strong. They don't have strong characters. They have identity crisis. Yeah, they have pressure not just from their peers, but even in their own house, from the parents, from the general media. So like this is something, like I say, is that again we touch on a lot of subjects here, and they tend to be umbrella issues. Where from this one issue, a lot of other issues stem from it, because like we know, from peer pressure leads to crime, leads to zina, leads to suicide, leads to drug taking, leads to everything because of the peer pressure. So again, it's like we have to understand again as Muslims that this Islam that Allah has given us is not a small thing.
Yeah, it's true.
Because again, it's like we can look at the drugs, we can look at the zina, we can look at the depression. All of these things have solutions. We have solutions for all of these things.
Yeah, like I said, in regards to peer pressure, it's a serious matter, especially with what you just said in regards to keeping up at their parents. Because when we see a lot of these young people, they're living a lifestyle that's not really them. For example, alhamdulillah, we're reverts to Islam, and especially some of these famous people that a lot of people look up to, some of them we know them, and we know how they really live their lives. But when you see them on social media, with the Rolexes, with expensive cars, we know some of these things are rentals. We know some of these cars are on lease. We know some of these watches, even down to the music videos, we know people go to Hatton Garden and they rent their jewelry for the day. But many of these young people, what I'm saying is, Bashir, a lot of these young people don't know that, you know? And many of these people are trying to live a certain appearance. We see some rappers who work in the post office, bro. But they're online with Rolexes, big chains and whatnot. But they have to maintain that appearance because this is what people expect from them and this is what people want to see from them. And this is the life they have to live. And I think it's dangerous to live a lifestyle like that.
I'm saying, when you're dealing with something that you don't fully understand, because like I say, we understand it in a sense where we know who we are, we have our identity. So anything that's trying to take us outside of that, we understand it, we identify it. So we know if someone comes who says, listen, do you want to come and make this? Or someone comes with something that you don't have and maybe you want, you understand that this is not written for me now. Maybe it'll be written for me later. This person got a nice car. Maybe I'll have it later, but it's not for me right now. So that pressure is very minimized. Do you understand? It's like you have bad friends and you understand they're trying to make you do something wrong. You should be able to identify as a Muslim to know, listen, this is not right for me. So the pressure is minimized. The problem is when people can't understand this pressure and they, like I say, they fall for it. Because this peer pressure is something that it can be a very minimal issue in your life, or it could be the biggest issue in your life. Yeah. And like we understand now, it leads to everything. It's an umbrella issue. Yeah. We can never put it down to, okay, now it's just peer pressure and that's it. No, the peer pressure is leading to the zina, it's leading to the drugs, it's leading to the suicide. Yeah, of course. So again, as Muslims, we have to become people that know how to identify these issues and what they really are, and understand that the solution is right in front of our eyes for these problems. Like, you're a young brother, I can imagine the peer pressure that you go into. Yeah, good looking brother, mashallah. You got your whole life ahead of you. Yeah, do you understand? I can imagine what you're going through, but you have to understand what this really is. Of course I understand. It's a lie. It's an illusion. It's not something that you have to let contain you. You have to. Do you understand?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's an interesting thing, really. I think a lot of young brothers and sisters are like, you know, when they feel this temptation, thanks to peer pressure, to do certain things that are wrong, whether it's sins and other things that can obviously corrupt them and have consequences. I think they have an ill-informed perspective that if I don't get this out of the way now, at least, then I'm going to feel like I've missed out. In the future, I'm going to feel like, at least I should know what it's like, and then, you know, I can just say, I've done it. Been there, done that. But to be honest, I think the only thing that you'll be missing out on, and this is a message obviously to young brothers and sisters listening, that the only thing you're really missing out on is the ghadab of Allah, really. And I think even then, in the middle of such an act that you're thinking you're just getting out of the way, I think you're gambling with your life as well, because who's to say Allah won't take your soul there and then? Thinking about that in an Islamic perspective, then there's the general perspective as well in terms of the dunya. So say, for example, whether it's drugs, zina, these things have obviously consequences here and now. So zina, unwanted pregnancies, STDs, anything. I could go on and on. Alcohol and drugs, the detriments it has on you, the people around you, and so on and so on. So this perspective of, and I've seen it because perhaps at one point even I had that thinking, yeah, you know, if you don't have the experience or whatever, then how are you going to know? Things like this, it's nonsense. You know what they say, the clever man will learn from the mistakes of others. So listen to to the people who have really been there and done that. Take it from them. Like, don't think, oh, I should do that as well. No, you have to be happy in that Allah has given you that strong perspective, and even that we're here today. You know, for those listening in, this is perhaps a sign from Allah that, you know, you should think twice if there's anyone thinking that.
So I'm very glad you brought up this point, and it's something I want you to touch on after as well. But it's that you have no idea, yes, the reality of it, and it's something we've spoken about before as well. One thing people have the notion is that, okay, you do these things, been there, done that. You got the T-shirt, so and then it's like, okay, then you could be a serious Muslim, and you can kind of just press the delete button. No, you can't. The biggest thing that we experience now is that we have been so far away from Jahiliyyah now. It's been many years now. Many years of being Muslims and being practicing Muslims. But it's that we're still stuck in the old life because we can't forget anything. And the biggest regret we have is that we weren't born Muslims and we didn't get to live a clean lifestyle, because these experiences do not leave us and they scar us. And it's like a real life demon in your head. Where you go to sleep, you wake up, you're in sujood. You can think about songs that you heard when you was a kid. You can think about experiences you had, you understand, at the wrong times. So it's something that people have to understand, is that there is no benefit in it whatsoever. We don't, like I say, especially where we're coming from, we understand that the experiences make us who we are. And we don't try to have regrets in a sense where we kind of deny the qadr and we don't accept what Allah has written for us. But we understand that wrong is wrong. And it's not something that we're proud of or something that we embrace, because we know what effect it's had on us and the people around us. But this is one thing a lot of the Muslims and the people have to understand. You're not going to get away with it in this life or the next life. You're still going to have that book that where it's all written down in. You're still going to have the memories, you understand? And I want you to touch on this because we spoke about this before, but I want people to really understand that don't ever think that, like, okay, I'm going to have a couple years of fun and then I'm going to just change and it's all going to be all right. It's not. Because either you don't come out of that situation or the situation never leaves you. Because I've come back to London now and I've got nothing but like nightmares, demons. I'm walking in my area. I'm remembering bad things. I'm remembering things, and it's killing me. So speak on this.
Well, what you said is a very, 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 very serious point, because, like I said, and we were talking the other day, sometimes when we get into situations, we go back to default settings. I like to use that phrase because this is where we come from. This is what we know. We know, alhamdulillah, becoming a Muslim, Allah has erased our past, and you know our sins are forgiven for the things that we've done before. But to erase your memory is something that is virtually impossible to do. We have to remember, whether we like it or not, me, you, when certain people see us, they know us for certain things. They're never going to forget that. Even though we present ourselves as Muslims and they know we're practicing, we know we're not living that lifestyle, but in the back of their mind, when they see you, they know you for that person, or they know me for that person. And it's hard, especially when, like you said, you go to your old area and you can just look at a stairs. This sounds strange. You can just look at a stairs and your mind will just flash back to something crazy what happened, and it affects you. So for the young people out there, this is such a dangerous thing to do. Think, oh, you know what? Let me live a jahiliyyah lifestyle. Let me do evil things, and then I'll come back to the deen. Because yeah, you might live that lifestyle and come back to the deen, but every day or every other day, when you're put in a certain situation and you have to remember about the evil things that you do, wallahi, it can affect you. And if you're not strong-minded, because this all goes back to character, Bashir, it goes back to character. If you haven't got a strong character, these things can affect you. And another thing is, when you get weak, what do you go back to? You go back to what you know, default settings. This is a big problem.
As a brother, like I say, you got your whole life ahead of you, bro. You know what I mean? All of us, we all got hope, inshallah. We've got futures. May Allah give us long life, inshallah, upon obedience. But again, it's something that you have to understand, is that like the only road is the right road. And anything outside of that is just going to give you problems. And that's one thing that people don't realize, that these are issues. All of these issues, zina, peer pressure, music, all of these things. They're always going to be issues because we have desires. We have innate natures. Do you understand? But it doesn't have to be as big an issue as it is for other people. If we understand that what this life is really about and what we're here to do, and what is right, what's the good things in life. And like I say, and we'll try to leave it on a positive note, is that the pressure, maybe it's a good thing as well. So we don't want people to like lose hope and to go and, you know what I mean, to despair. Maybe this is a good thing. Maybe it's something that can be a means of you having a better life. Because like we know, if you understand what these things are really about, it can make you a better person, it can make you a stronger person. We all have peer pressure, but at the same time, how are we going to deal with it? And us dealing with it in the right way can be a good thing for us. So I want the brothers and sisters to understand that maybe this peer pressure you're going through, maybe it's a blessing from Allah. Maybe it's a means of Allah removing people from your life. Maybe it's a means of Allah raising you in rank. Maybe it's a means of Allah making you a stronger person. Maybe it's a means of Allah bringing you closer to Him. So we ask Allah to protect us from these things, because none of us are safe from it. No matter how old we are, how young we are, we're all going to be victims of peer pressure. But how are we going to deal with it? So I want to thank the guests for coming in. Thank you very much. We appreciate inputs, and we hope it's going to be a means of benefit for the people. But again, please guys, understand that we deal with a lot of umbrella issues, but we have the solution for these umbrella issues. And you have to understand that these umbrella issues will lead to many other ills, many other sins. But if you understand the root to the problem and you understand the solution to the problem, then you can solve all of your problems, inshallah. So thank you again for coming to have your say. Until next time, I'm your presenter, Bashir Blenman. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.